The shuttle hit the ground hard. Metal screamed against rock. Fire bloomed from the engines. Tae-sung felt his body slam against the restraints. Then everything went dark for a moment. When he opened his eyes, smoke filled the cabin. His head throbbed. Blood trickled down his forehead. He reached up and touched the cut. Not deep. He would live. Around him, the other passengers were not so lucky. The diplomatic team had not survived the crash. Tae-sung unbuckled himself and stumbled out through the torn hull. The planet's air was thin but breathable. Red sand stretched in every direction. Strange rock formations rose like frozen waves. In the distance, he could see the smoke from another crash. Someone else had gone down too. He checked his supplies. A damaged plasma pistol. 3 shots left. A small medical kit. Some water packs. A thermal blanket. Not much, but it would have to do. He was a medic trained for situations like this. Keep calm. Assess. Survive. The sun was setting fast. He needed to find shelter before dark. But first he should check that other crash site. Maybe there were survivors. Tae-sung walked across the red sand. His boots crunched on the brittle surface. The second crash was closer than he thought. As he approached, he saw it was a small scout ship. Not human design. The hull was smooth and curved, covered in strange symbols. Quilnari markings. His heart sank. The Quilnari Empire. Humanity's rivals in this sector of space. Not quite enemies, not quite friends. Just 2 powers circling each other like wary animals. Then he heard it. A sound like crying. High-pitched and desperate. Tae-sung ran toward the wreckage. A piece of the hull had collapsed, pinning something beneath it. No, someone. He could see purple scales reflecting the dying light. Quilnari. Still alive, he approached carefully. The figure was small, maybe a young adult. Female, based on the head crest he could see. One of her arms was trapped under the debris, bent at a horrible angle. Broken. Definitely broken. Her eyes snapped open when she heard his footsteps. Large eyes, golden with vertical pupils, they went wide with terror when she saw him. No, she gasped in broken galactic common. No, please. Stay back. I'm not going to hurt you, Tae-sung said slowly. He raised his hands. I'm a medic. I can help. Human, she hissed. The word sounded like a curse. You're human. Yes, and you're injured. Let me look at your arm. No. She tried to pull away, but the debris held her fast. Pain flashed across her face. Her scales flickered, bioluminescent markings dimming with distress. Don't touch me, you beast. Tae-sung knelt down beside her. He could see the break now. Bad. Very bad. The bone had snapped cleanly, but it was displaced. Without treatment, she would go into shock. Quilnari had fragile bones compared to humans. They also had extremely sensitive nervous systems. This kind of injury could kill her from pain alone. Listen to me, he said firmly. Your arm is broken. If I don't set it now, you'll die. Do you understand? You'll die. You'll tear it off, she sobbed. Tears streamed down her scaled face. You humans, you're monsters. You'll hurt me for fun. I'm going to hurt you, Tae-sung admitted, but not for fun. To save your life. There's a difference. He moved closer. She screamed and thrashed, but she was trapped and weak. He grabbed her shoulder to hold her still. No. You beast monster! Don't! Tae-sung took hold of her broken arm. She shrieked. The sound was like nothing he had ever heard. A wailing keen that seemed to split the air itself. Her free hand clawed at the sand. Her whole body convulsed. He felt for the break. There. The bone was completely separated. He would have to pull it straight, then push the pieces back together. It was going to be agony for her. For a Quilnari, this was torture, but if he didn't do it, she would die. I'm sorry, he whispered. Then he pulled. The crack of bone realigning echoed across the desert. The Quilnari girl's scream reached a pitch that hurt his ears. She called him every word he could understand and many he could not. Beast, monster, killer, demon. Tae-sung felt tears on his own face as he worked. He could feel every tremor of pain that ran through her body, but his hands didn't stop. They moved with the precision of years of training. Feel the bone. Guide it back. Hold it steady. He tore strips from his uniform and found 2 straight pieces of metal debris. Splints. He tied them carefully around her arm, making sure the bone stayed in position. She was barely conscious now, sobbing weakly. When he finished, he lifted the debris off her. She collapsed onto the sand, shaking violently. Her arm was set. The bone was aligned. She would live. Taesung sat back on his heels, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. He looked at the young Quilnari, curled up on the ground, her face wet with tears. She looked so small, so fragile. Just a girl, really. Probably not much older than his sister Jiwoo had been when she broke her arm falling from that tree. "You beast," the girl whispered one more time. Then she passed out. Taesung picked her up carefully. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her back toward his crash site as the sun finally set. The night would be cold. They would need shelter, fire, water. He had saved her life. She hated him for it, that was fine. Hate was better than death. She could hate him all she wanted, as long as she was alive to do it. As he walked across the darkening desert carrying his enemy in his arms, Taesung remembered something his teacher had once told him. A medic treats the patient, not the person. You don't save only the ones you like. You save the ones who need saving. The Quilnari girl stirred in his arms, mumbling something in her own language, probably cursing him again. He smiled despite everything. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know, I'm a beast. But you're alive, and that's what matters." The stars came out above them, cold and distant. 2 crashed ships, 2 survivors. 2 species that barely trusted each other. And somewhere in the darkness, the night began to close in. Taesung worked through the night. He built a small shelter from pieces of wreckage, leaning panels against a large rock to create a windbreak. He started a fire using fuel cells from his shuttle. The flames gave off chemical smoke, but it was warm. That was what mattered. The Quilnari girl lay on his thermal blanket near the fire. She was still unconscious. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Her arm was swelling despite the splint. That was normal. The body's response to trauma. He checked the bindings. Still secure. Good. He found her supply pack near her crashed ship. Inside were Quilnari nutrient packs, water, and a small medical kit. He couldn't read the labels, but he recognized some of the instruments. Injectors, bandages, some kind of medicine in sealed vials. When she woke up, maybe she could tell him what they were for. Taesung ate one of his own ration bars and drank some water. Then he began working on the communication beacon from his shuttle. It was damaged but not destroyed. If he could repair it, they could call for help. Someone would come eventually. Human or Quilnari, it didn't matter. Either way, they could get off this planet. He worked by firelight, his hands steady. Soldering, testing connections, bypassing burned circuits. It was delicate work, and his head still ached from the crash. But he had nothing else to do, and stopping meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering the dead crew. Better to work. Behind him, the Quilnari girl stirred. He heard her gasp. Then she whimpered softly. Taesung didn't turn around. "You're awake. Good. Try not to move your arm." Silence. "Then where am I?" "My shelter. I brought you here after I set your arm." More silence. He could feel her staring at his back. "Then you set my arm?" "Yes. You really did it." "I thought it was a nightmare. It was real. Your bone was broken." "I fixed it." He heard her breathing change, faster, panicked. "It hurts. It hurts so much." "I know. That's normal. The pain means it's healing. Healing." Her voice rose. "You broke me." Taesung finally turned around. She was sitting up, cradling her splinted arm against her chest. In the firelight, he could see her face clearly for the first time. She was young, very young, maybe 19 or 20 in human years. Her scales were a deep purple color, with lighter blue markings that glowed faintly, pretty in an alien way. "I didn't break you," he said calmly. "The crash broke you. I put you back together. There's a difference. You hurt me." Tears filled her eyes again. "You hurt me so much. I begged you to stop. If I had stopped, you would have died. Maybe that would have been better." Taesung felt a flash of anger. He pushed it down. She was in pain. She was scared. She was far from home. Of course she was saying things she didn't mean. "No," he said quietly. "It wouldn't have been better. Trust me." The girl looked away. She was shaking, but not from pain. From fear. She was afraid of him. That was clear. "What's your name?" Taesung asked. She didn't answer at first. Then quietly, "Lixara. I'm Taesung. I'm a medic with the Human Diplomatic Corps. I was on my way to peace talks when we crashed. I'm a scout," Lixara said. "Junior grade. This was my first solo mission." She laughed bitterly. "Some mission. You're alive. That's something. Thanks to you." The words sounded like an accusation. "You're the one who hurt me. You're the one who saved me. I don't know which is worse." Taesung went back to his work on the beacon. They're the same thing, Lixara. Sometimes saving someone means hurting them first. That's just how it is. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. The wind whistled through the rocks. Above them, unfamiliar stars wheeled across the sky. My people say humans are beasts, Lixara said suddenly. They say you feel no pain. That you hurt others because you don't understand suffering. We understand it, Taesung said. We just have a higher tolerance. Our bones are denser. Our nerves are less sensitive. What would kill you, we can survive. That's not natural. Natural is what works. Our way works for us. Your way works for you. Your way is brutal. Yes, Taesung agreed. He didn't argue. It was true. Human medicine could be brutal compared to other species. They cut deeper. They pushed harder. They endured more. Because they could. But brutal doesn't mean cruel. I didn't enjoy hurting you. You cried, Lixara said softly, when you were setting my arm. I saw tears on your face. Taesung looked up surprised. You were conscious? Barely. But I saw. You were crying while I screamed. She touched her splinted arm gently. Why, if humans don't feel pain, why did you cry? I felt your pain, Taesung said simply. Not physically. But I knew what I was doing to you. I knew how much it hurt. That doesn't make it easier. Lixara stared at him. In her golden eyes, he saw confusion, doubt. The beginning of understanding, maybe. I don't know what to think about you, she said finally. You're a beast who cries. A monster who saves lives. I was taught you were evil, but evil wouldn't build me a shelter. Evil wouldn't share its fire. I'm not a monster, Taesung said. I'm just a medic doing his job. Your job is to hurt people. My job is to fix them. Sometimes that means causing pain. A bone that heals crooked will hurt forever. A bone that's set right will hurt for a few weeks, then get better. I chose the second option for you. Lixara was quiet for a long time. Then she said, thank you. The words were soft, almost whispered. But they were real. Taesung smiled. You're welcome. The temperature was dropping fast. Lixara began to shiver. Quilnari were cold-blooded. They couldn't regulate their own body temperature. She needed external heat or she would die. Taesung moved closer to her. Come here. Near the fire, she flinched. Don't touch me. I won't, but you need to stay warm. Your people can't survive this cold. Reluctantly, Lixara moved closer to the fire, but she was still shivering. The fire alone wasn't enough, Taesung sighed. Lixara, you need body heat. Mine. I know you don't want me close, but this isn't optional. You'll freeze. I'd rather freeze than— No, you wouldn't. Freezing is slow and painful and stupid. Swallow your pride and let me help you. He wrapped the thermal blanket around both of them and sat close to her. She was stiff as a board, every muscle tense, but gradually his body heat soaked into her. The shivering stopped. She relaxed slightly. I hate this, she muttered. I know. You smell weird. So do you. Despite everything, Lixara laughed. It was a small sound, barely there. But it was a laugh. They sat together through the long, cold night. Two strangers from different worlds sharing warmth to survive, and somewhere in the darkness something howled. Taesung woke to the sound of scraping. His eyes snapped open. The fire had died down to embers. Dawn was just beginning to break, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Lixara was awake, trying to open one of her nutrient packs with one hand. She was struggling, her injured arm still bound against her chest. She looked exhausted, probably hadn't slept much. Here. Taesung took the pack and opened it for her. Inside was a thick paste that smelled like citrus and copper. He handed it back. Thank you, she said quietly. They ate in silence. Taesung's rations tasted like cardboard. He had eaten worse. Lixara seemed equally unimpressed with her food. At least they had that in common. What's that? Lixara asked, pointing at the device he had been working on. Communication beacon. If I can get it working, we can call for help. Will it reach my people or yours? Whoever's closest. Does it matter? Lixara thought about that. I suppose not. We both want off this planet. Taesung nodded and went back to work. His fingers traced the circuits, checking each connection. The main transmitter was cracked but functional. The power cell was drained. He needed a new one. Wait, Lixara said. My ship, it has power cells. Small ones, but they might work. Can you show me where? They walked to her crash site together. Lixara moved slowly, cradling her arm. Every step seemed to hurt her, but she didn't complain. Tae-sung noticed that. She was tougher than she looked. The scout ship was a wreck, but parts of it were intact. Lixara guided him to a panel on the side. Inside, he found 3 power cells, each about the size of his fist. "These will work," he said. "Good thinking." Lixara smiled slightly. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. It changed her face, made her look younger, less afraid. As they turned to leave, Tae-sung heard it again. That howling from last night. Closer now. Much closer. What is that? Lixara whispered. "I don't know. But we should get back to the shelter now." They started walking quickly. The howling came again, from 3 different directions this time. They were being surrounded. Then Tae-sung saw them. Creatures emerging from behind the rock formations, 6-legged, covered in chitinous plates. Each one was the size of a large dog with mandibles that clicked and dripped with venom. Their eyes were multifaceted, reflecting the morning light. "Vraxians," Lixara gasped. "Scavengers. They hunt crash sites. How many?" "Too many. There were at least a dozen of them, maybe more." They moved in a coordinated pattern, cutting off escape routes. Intelligent hunters. Tae-sung pulled out his plasma pistol. 3 shots left. "Not nearly enough. Can you run?" he asked Lixara, not fast. "My arm. Then we fight here. Stay behind me." The first Vraxian charged. Tae-sung fired. The plasma bolt hit it square in the head, and it went down in a spray of ichor. The others hesitated. 2 shots left. Another one charged from the side. Tae-sung spun and fired. Another hit. The creature collapsed, twitching. 1 shot left, and there were still 10 or more of them. "Run!" Tae-sung shouted. He grabbed Lixara's good arm and pulled her toward the shelter. The Vraxians gave chase, their legs chittering across the rocks. They made it to the shelter just ahead of the pack. Tae-sung pushed Lixara inside and turned to face the creatures. He fired his last shot, taking down the closest one. Then the pistol died with a sad click. A Vraxian leaped at him. Tae-sung caught it midair and slammed it into the ground. The creature's carapace cracked. It tried to bite him, but he grabbed its mandibles and pulled. Hard. The mandibles tore free in a spray of yellow blood. The Vraxian screamed and retreated. Another one came at him from behind. Tae-sung spun, grabbed one of its legs and pulled. The leg came off. The creature collapsed off balance. He stomped on its head and it stopped moving. Behind him he could hear Lixara making sounds of horror and disbelief. 2 more Vraxians attacked together. Tae-sung fought like a wild animal, all training forgotten. He punched, kicked, tore, bit when he had to. His hands were covered in ichor. His uniform was shredded. Pain bloomed across his body as claws and mandibles found their marks. But he didn't stop. One by one, the Vraxians fell or fled. Finally, the last one turned and ran, clicking a retreat signal. The others followed. In moments, they were gone. Tae-sung stood among the bodies, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arms. Some of it was his. Most of it wasn't. He turned to Lixara. She was pressed against the shelter wall, staring at him with wide eyes. Her scales had gone pale. She looked terrified. "Are you hurt?" Tae-sung asked. She shook her head slowly. She couldn't seem to speak. "Good." He walked past her into the shelter and began treating his wounds. Deep scratches on his arms. A gash across his ribs, painful but not serious. He cleaned them with water and used the last of his medical supplies to bandage them. Lixara finally found her voice. You just killed them. Yes, I had to. You tore them apart. With your hands. Yes, that's impossible. No one can do that. You can't just... She stopped. Started again. My people couldn't do that. We're not strong enough. We're not built like that. I know. You really are beasts. Tae-sung looked at her. Yes, we are. Does that change anything? Lixara looked at her splinted arm. Then back at him. I don't know, she said quietly. You saved my life. Twice now. You're covered in wounds from protecting me. But you're a monster? A beast, she corrected. Then softer. But maybe that's not always bad. It was a small admission. A crack in her prejudice. But it was something. Tae-sung nodded and went back to work on the beacon. His hands were shaking now, adrenaline fading. But he had the power cells. He could finish the repairs. They had survived another day. That was enough. By midday, the beacon was working. The power cells from Lixara's ship fit perfectly. Tae-sung activated it and a green light began blinking steadily. The signal was broadcasting. How long until someone comes? Lixara asked. Could be hours, could be days. Depends who's in range. They waited. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the red sand. It was hot now, uncomfortably so. Lixara seemed to feel better in the heat. Her scales brightened and she moved with less stiffness. Tae-sung checked her arm. The swelling had gone down slightly. No signs of infection yet. That was good. Quilnari healed slowly compared to humans, but she was young and strong. She would recover. Tell me about your sister, Lixara said suddenly. Tae-sung looked up, surprised. My sister? You mentioned her yesterday. You said you set her arm once. Ji-woo. She's 2 years younger than me. When she was 10, she climbed a tree to rescue a cat. The branch broke. She fell 3 meters and broke her arm. We lived in a rural area. Help was hours away. So I said it myself. And she let you? Tae-sung smiled at the memory. She screamed the entire time. Called me every name she could think of. But yes, she let me. She knew it was necessary. Did she forgive you? There was nothing to forgive. I helped her. She understood that. Lixara touched her splinted arm thoughtfully. My people don't understand that. Pain is the worst thing in our culture. To cause pain is the greatest sin. Even to help. But you're alive because I caused you pain, I know. That's what confuses me. She looked at him directly. How do you decide? When pain is worth it and when it's not? Tae-sung thought about that. You ask if the pain leads to healing. If yes, then it's worth it. If no, then it's just cruelty. Setting your arm was painful, but it saved your life. That made it worth it. And if I had refused, then I would have explained why it was necessary. If you still refused, he paused, I probably would have done it anyway. Because letting you die would have been worse. You would have hurt me against my will. To save your life, yes. Lixara shook her head slowly. My people would call that assault violation even if it saved a life. What do you call it? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't know anymore. Yesterday I would have agreed with them. But now, I'm alive. My arm will heal. Because you violated me. She said the words carefully, testing them. Because you were a beast. And I'm grateful for that. How do I make sense of that? You don't have to make sense of it right now. Just accept it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The beacon blinked green. Tae-sung worked on fashioning a better sling for Lixara's arm, using strips of material from both their uniforms. She watched him work, her expression thoughtful. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you cry? When you were setting my arm, you said you felt my pain. But how? You're human. You're built to endure. Tae-sung finished tying off the sling and helped her put it on. Being able to endure pain doesn't mean we don't understand it. I knew exactly how much I was hurting you. I knew you thought I was torturing you. That... He searched for words. That hurt me. Not physically, but it hurt. So you have empathy. Of course. Did you think we didn't? We're taught that humans are cold, logical, that you make decisions without feeling. We feel plenty. We just don't let feelings stop us from doing what's necessary. Lixara studied him carefully. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. I thought Quilnari were fragile, weak, but you're tougher than I gave you credit for. You've been walking around with a broken arm, helping me, not complaining. That's not weak, she smiled slightly. My arm is splinted. The pain is manageable now, and sitting around feeling sorry for myself won't get us rescued. Exactly. That night they shared the thermal blanket again without argument. Lixara settled against him naturally, seeking his warmth. She was getting used to him. That was progress, Tae-sung, she said in the darkness. Yeah? If your people and mine ever make peace, what do you think will happen to people like us? What do you mean? People who've seen both sides. Who know the truth. That we're not so different. That we can survive together. Tae-sung thought about that. I think people like us will be the ones who make peace possible. Because we know it's not about one side being right and the other being wrong. It's about both sides being willing to understand each other. Even when that understanding is painful, especially then. Lixara was quiet. Then she said, I'm going to tell people about this. About you. What you did for me. They won't believe it. They'll say I'm lying or confused or suffering from trauma. Will you tell them anyway? Yes, someone has to. If we're going to have peace, it has to start somewhere. She paused. Maybe it starts with a broken arm in the desert. Maybe it does. They fell asleep like that. Two survivors from different worlds, sharing warmth and hope under alien stars. And somewhere in the night, the beacon continued to blink its message into the void. Help was coming. The only question was who would arrive first. Ligsara woke in the night, burning with fever. Taesung felt her body temperature spike even through his sleep. He jerked awake and touched her forehead, too hot. Much too hot. Her bioluminescent markings were flickering erratically. Her breathing was fast and shallow. She mumbled something in Quilnari, words he couldn't understand. Infection. The broken bone must have introduced bacteria into her bloodstream. For a Quilnari, that meant sepsis, fatal within hours if untreated. No, Taesung muttered. He had been so careful with the splint. He had cleaned everything, but maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe something had gotten in during the initial break. He grabbed the Quilnari medical kit he had salvaged from her ship. Inside were various items, all labeled in Quilnari script. He couldn't read any of it. Ligsara, he said, shaking her gently. Ligsara, wake up. I need your help. Her eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused, glazed with fever. Cold, she whispered. So cold. You have an infection. I need you to tell me which medicine to use. Can you do that? She nodded weakly. Taesung held up items one by one. She would shake her head or nod. Finally, she pointed to a vial of clear liquid and an injector. This one? He asked. Yes, broad-spectrum antibiotic, strong. How much? She tried to focus on the vial. Two doses. One in the arm, near the break. One in the bloodstream. Taesung loaded the injector. His hands were steady, but inside he was panicking. One mistake and she would die. He had never treated a Quilnari before. Their biology was completely different from human. Where exactly? Show me. With her good hand, Ligsara pointed to a spot on her splinted arm. Here, through the bandage, into the muscle near the bone. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts, she whispered. Just do it, please. Taesung positioned the injector. This was a nightmare. He was about to inject medicine he couldn't read into an alien he barely understood. If he got it wrong, she would die. If he did nothing, she would die anyway. No choice. There was never a choice. He pressed the injector against her arm and triggered it. The medicine hissed through the bandage into her muscle. Ligsara screamed. Her body went rigid with pain. She tried to pull away, but he held her still. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. One more. Just one more. He loaded the second dose. Ligsara was crying now, gasping for breath. Please, she sobbed. Please stop. I can't take any more. You can. You're stronger than you think. Stay with me, Ligsara. Don't give up. He found the injection point on her neck where he could see a major blood vessel pulsing under her scales. He positioned the injector carefully. This one had to be precise. Too deep and he could hit the wrong vessel. Too shallow and the medicine wouldn't work. He took a breath and injected. Ligsara's scream cut off abruptly. Her eyes rolled back. For a horrible moment, Taesung thought he had killed her. Then her chest rose and fell, still breathing. She had just passed out from the pain. He checked her pulse, fast but steady. He checked the injection sites. No bleeding. Good. Now all he could do was wait. Taesung held her through the night. Her fever stayed high for hours. She mumbled and thrashed, lost in delirium. He cooled her forehead with water. He adjusted the blanket when she shivered, pulled it back when she seemed too hot. Don't die, he whispered. I didn't fix your arm just to let you die now. Stay with me, Ligsara. Please stay with me. Near dawn, her fever broke. The change was sudden. One moment she was burning up, the next she was cool to the touch. Her breathing slowed, her marking steadied to a gentle, regular pulse. Taesung finally allowed himself to breathe. She was going to live. He must have fallen asleep then, because when he woke the sun was up and Ligsara was watching him. She looked terrible. Pale scales, sunken eyes, weak. But alive. Definitely alive. You're awake, he said. You saved me again. Her voice was barely a whisper. You told me which medicine to use. You saved yourself. I couldn't have injected it. I was too weak. You did it. She touched her arm gently. It hurt so much. I thought I was dying. I thought you were killing me. I know, but you didn't stop. I couldn't. Ligsara looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, Thank you. You're welcome. Your arm is bleeding. Taesung looked down. His arm was covered in scratches. Deep ones. You did that. when I gave you the injection. You clawed me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, it's fine. You were in pain, I understand. You didn't stop even though I was hurting you. You weren't trying to hurt me. You were just trying to survive. He smiled slightly. Besides, these are nothing. They'll heal. Lixara reached out with her good hand and touched one of the scratches. Her fingers were cool against his skin. Does it hurt? A little. I'm sorry. Don't be. You needed me to be strong. So I was strong. She pulled her hand back. I don't understand you. You're brutal and gentle at the same time. You hurt me to save me. You endure pain without complaint. You cry but you don't stop. What are you? I'm a medic. This is what we do. Not Quilnari medics. We avoid pain at all costs. We use sedation for everything. Even minor procedures. The idea of causing pain deliberately, even to heal. It's unthinkable. Maybe that's why your people and mine see each other as enemies. We have different ideas about what mercy means. What does it mean to you? Taesung thought carefully. Mercy is doing what's necessary even when it's hard. Sometimes mercy is gentle. Sometimes it's brutal. But it's always focused on saving the life in front of you. Everything else is secondary. Lixara closed her eyes. My people would say you violated my bodily autonomy. That you hurt me without true consent, did I? Yes, I told you to stop. I begged you. You didn't listen. Would you rather I had stopped? Let you die? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, no, I'm glad I'm alive, but I'm also glad I get to be angry about how it happened. Is that wrong? No, you're allowed to feel however you feel. Even though you saved my life. Especially because I saved your life. Being grateful doesn't mean you can't also be angry or scared or confused. Emotions aren't logical. They just are. Lixara opened her eyes and looked at him. You're very wise for a beast. Despite everything, Taesung laughed. Thanks, I think. They rested through the day. Lixara slept most of the time, her body recovering from the fever. Taesung kept watch, monitoring the beacon and checking the perimeter for more Vraxians. None came. Maybe they had learned their lesson. As evening approached, Lixara woke again. She looked better. Color had returned to her scales. Her eyes were clearer. How do you feel? Taesung asked. Like I got trampled by a cargo hauler, but alive. Good, that's good. She sat up slowly, cradling her arm. The beacon is still transmitting? Yes, help should be here soon. And then what? Then you go back to your people. I go back to mine. We tell our story. Will they believe us? Some will. Some won't, but we have to try. Lixara nodded. Then she said, I'm going to record something. On my datapad. A testimony. About what happened here. About you. Is that okay? You don't need my permission, I know. But I'm asking anyway. Taesung smiled. Yes, it's okay. Record whatever you want. Lixara pulled out her damaged datapad. It still worked barely. She activated the recording function and began to speak in Quilnari. Taesung didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Serious, earnest, honest. She was telling the truth. Their truth. The story of a human beast and a Quilnari scout who survived together. When she finished, she looked at him. I told them you saved my life, twice. That you protected me even though we're supposed to be enemies. That you're brutal and gentle and kind and terrifying. That maybe humans aren't the monsters we think they are. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm doing this for selfish reasons. If my people hear this, maybe they'll think twice about going to war. Maybe this changes something. Maybe it does. That night they sat together under the stars one last time. Help would come tomorrow, Taesung was sure of it. This was their last night as survivors. Tomorrow they would go back to being human and Quilnari. Separate, different, potentially enemies. But tonight, they were just two people who had lived through something extraordinary together. Taesung, Lixara said quietly, yeah? Thank you for being a beast when I needed one, he smiled. Thank you for being strong enough to survive one. They fell asleep together, two unlikely friends on the edge of something that might change everything. The ships arrived at dawn. Two of them. One human, one Quilnari. They descended from opposite directions, their engines roaring across the desert. Taesung and Lixara watched them approach, standing side by side. Looks like we both get rescued, Taesung said. Yes, together but separate. That feels appropriate somehow. The ships landed 100 meters apart. Ramps extended. Human soldiers emerged from one ship. Quilnari warriors from the other. Both groups were armed. Both groups looked ready for trouble. A human officer approached Tai-Sung. Medic Park Tai-Sung.
Are you injured?
Minor wounds. Nothing serious. The officer looked at Lixara. His hand moved toward his weapon. Is this one your prisoner? No, she's a survivor. Like me, she's injured. She needs medical attention. On the other side, a Quilnari warrior was speaking to Lixara in their language. She responded quickly, gesturing at Tai-Sung. The warrior's posture was aggressive, defensive. Sir, the human officer said carefully, we need to process you. Debrief, standard protocol for diplomatic personnel. I understand, but I need to make sure she gets proper medical care first. That's not our responsibility. Her people will handle it. Her arm is broken. I said it in the field. It needs to be checked by proper medical staff. Quilnari medical staff who understand her biology. The officer frowned. You set her arm? Manually? Yes. That must have been difficult. It was necessary. On the Quilnari side, Lixara was arguing with her warriors. Her voice rose, sharp and insistent. She pointed at Tai-Sung repeatedly. The warriors looked confused and skeptical. Finally, Lixara broke away from her group and walked toward Tai-Sung. The Quilnari warriors shouted at her, but she ignored them. The human soldiers raised their weapons, but Tai-Sung held up a hand. Stand down. She's not a threat. Lixara stopped in front of him. Her good hand held her data pad. I need you to have this, a copy of my testimony, so your people can hear it too. Lixara, you don't have to. Yes, I do. This is important. What happened here, it's bigger than us. It needs to be heard. She pressed the data pad into his hand. Then she did something unexpected. She touched her injured arm to her heart. A Quilnari gesture he didn't understand, but the meaning was clear. Respect, gratitude, farewell. Thank you, she said in Galactic Common, loud enough for everyone to hear. You saved my life. You protected me. You endured with me. I will tell everyone what you did. I promise, Tai-Sung nodded. And I'll tell them about you. How strong you were, how brave. The Quilnari warriors were approaching now, looking angry. They grabbed Lixara's good arm and pulled her back. She didn't resist, but she kept her eyes on Tai-Sung until they took her up the ramp into their ship. The human officer cleared his throat. Sir, we need to leave now. Yeah, I know. Tai-Sung let them lead him to the human ship. He took one last look at the desert. Red sand, strange rocks. The place where he had crashed, fought, survived, and maybe, just maybe, helped plant a seed of peace. The ship lifted off. Through the viewport, he watched the Quilnari ship rise on the opposite side. Two ships carrying two survivors going in different directions, but carrying the same story. 3 days later, Tai-Sung was on a human station being debriefed by intelligence officers. They asked him the same questions over and over. What happened? How did you survive? What did you learn about Quilnari capabilities? He answered patiently. When they asked about Lixara, he told them the truth. She was brave, smart, stronger than expected. She had helped him as much as he had helped her. They didn't seem to believe that. Humans and Quilnari didn't help each other. That wasn't how it worked, but it had worked. For 3 days in a desert, it had worked perfectly. On the 4th day, he was cleared to leave. His sister Jiwoo met him at the transport station. She hugged him hard, not caring that his ribs were still bruised. You idiot, she said, crying. We thought you were dead. Takes more than a crash to kill me. I heard you saved an alien. A Quilnari. Is that true? Yes. Mom always said you couldn't help yourself. Always picking up strays, Tai-Sung laughed. She wasn't a stray. She was a person who needed help. Jiwoo pulled back and looked at him seriously. They're talking about it, you know. Your testimony. The Quilnari's testimony. It's all over the news. Some people are calling you a hero. Others are saying you're a traitor for helping the enemy. What do you think? I think you did what you always do. You saw someone hurting and you fixed them. That's who you are. Thanks, Jiwoo. Just promise me something. What? Next time you decide to fix someone, make sure you're not stranded on a hostile planet when you do it. I'll try. 6 months passed. The peace talks resumed, this time with new urgency. Both human and Quilnari delegations referenced the incident on Voluna 7. The story of the medic and the scout who survived together. It wasn't enough to create peace by itself, but it was a starting point. Proof that cooperation was possible. Taesung was invited to speak at a joint medical conference. Human and Quilnari doctors learning from each other, sharing techniques, building bridges through medicine. He taught emergency field medicine to Quilnari medics. They were horrified by human methods. Too brutal, too aggressive. But they couldn't argue with the results. Human techniques saved lives that Quilnari methods couldn't. In return, Quilnari doctors taught humans about pain management, about gentler approaches, about respecting patient autonomy even in crisis situations. It was a dialogue. Not perfect, but real. On the last day of the conference, Taesung was preparing his final presentation when someone knocked on his door. He opened it. And there stood Lixara. She looked different, older somehow, though only 6 months had passed. Her arm had healed completely. She moved it freely with no sign of injury. Her scales were bright and healthy. She wore a formal uniform he didn't recognize. "Hello, Taesung," she said. For a moment he couldn't speak. Then he smiled. "Hello, Lixara. Your arm healed well." "Yes, thanks to you." She held up her arm, flexing it. "The bone is actually stronger now. At the break point. My doctors said that's a human trait. Bones that break and heal become stronger. I didn't know Quilnari bones could do that too. Neither did I. May I come in?" "Of course." They sat together in his small room. There was so much to say, but neither knew where to start. Finally, Lixara said, "I'm a liaison officer now." "Cultural exchange. My testimony about you caused a lot of discussion among my people, some good, some bad, but it changed things, made people think. Same here. Some people think I'm a hero. Others think I'm a fool for helping you." "Are you? A hero or a fool?" "Either both," Taesung laughed. "Neither. I'm just a medic who did his job. You're more than that. You're proof that our species can work together, that we're not natural enemies." She paused. "I came to this conference because I wanted to see you again. To thank you properly. To tell you that I've been advocating for peace. Using our story as an example. How's that going?" "Slowly. But progress is being made. We're training Quilnari medics in human techniques now. It's controversial but necessary. Lives are being saved, that's good. And I wanted to apologize." "For what?" "For calling you a beast. For thinking you were a monster. For all the times I cursed you while you were helping me." Taesung shook his head. "You don't need to apologize for that. You were in pain. You were terrified. Of course you reacted that way. But I was wrong about you. You were scared. There's a difference," Lixara smiled. "You're still too kind. Even now you're making excuses for me. I'm not making excuses. I'm stating facts. You were injured and scared and dealing with someone from a species you'd been taught to fear. Your reactions were normal. Maybe, but I still want to say I'm sorry. And thank you. You gave me my life back. You gave me a chance to do something meaningful with it." "You're welcome." They talked for hours. About the conference. About their work. About the slow, painful process of building peace between their peoples. About how hard it was to change centuries of prejudice and mistrust. As evening came, Lixara stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "Taesung, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever regret it, saving me?" "I've caused you a lot of trouble. Controversy. People questioning your loyalty." Taesung didn't hesitate. "No, never. You were a person in pain. I helped you. That's all that matters. Even though I'm Quilnari. You being Quilnari is irrelevant. You were alive and hurt. I'm a medic. The math is simple." Lixara smiled. "My people say humans are beasts who don't understand pain. But you understand it better than anyone I've ever met. You just don't let it stop you. That's what being human means. Enduring what must be endured. Doing what must be done. Maybe that's what being strong means. For any species." She touched her healed arm to her heart again. That gesture of respect. Then she left. Taesung watched her go, feeling something he couldn't quite name. Not quite friendship. Not quite pride. Something else. Something that felt like hope. Maybe peace was possible. Maybe two species that saw each other as enemies could learn to see each other as people. Maybe it started with small things. A broken arm, a desert. Two survivors who refused to give up. The conference ended 3 days later. Taesung gave his final presentation to a packed auditorium. Half human, half Quilnari. He taught them emergency bone-setting techniques. Demonstrated on a medical dummy. Explained the philosophy behind it. "Pain is not the enemy," he told them. "Death is the enemy. Sometimes we must cause pain to prevent death. That's not cruelty. That's necessity. The key is knowing the difference. A Quilnari doctor raised her hand. But how do you justify violating patient autonomy if they refuse treatment? You explain why the treatment is necessary. You give them time to understand if you have time. But if death is immediate and they're not thinking clearly due to pain or fear, you do what must be done to save them. You can apologize later. You can discuss it later. But you can't have those conversations if the patient is dead. That's a very human perspective. Yes, but it works. And it saved lives, including Quilnari lives. The doctor looked at Lixara, who was sitting in the front row. Is this true? Did he violate your consent? Lixara stood. Yes, I told him to stop. I begged him not to hurt me.
He did it anyway. She paused.
And I'm alive because of it. My arm works perfectly. I have a career and a future because he ignored my panic and did what was necessary. Do you resent him for it? I did at first. I called him a beast and a monster. But now? She looked at Taesung. Now I understand that sometimes love looks like brutality. Sometimes mercy requires strength. He hurt me to save me. That's not a contradiction. That's just reality. The auditorium was silent. Then a human doctor spoke up. We can learn from this, both species. Humans can learn to be gentler, to consider patient fear more carefully. Quilnari can learn that sometimes speed and decisiveness save lives that gentle methods can't. Exactly, Taesung said. We're not here to say one approach is right and the other is wrong. We're here to learn from each other, to become better healers by combining our strengths. The presentation ended with applause, polite at first, then genuine. People were starting to understand. After the conference, Taesung was approached by several medical schools. They wanted him to teach, to develop training programs, to help create a new generation of doctors who understood both human and Quilnari approaches to medicine. He accepted. It seemed right. He had been a field medic, patching people up in emergencies. Now he would teach others to do the same. Human and Quilnari students learning side by side. Lixara took a similar position. She became an instructor in cross-cultural medical ethics, teaching both species about the other's values and fears, building understanding through education. They worked together often, not always in the same place but on the same projects, connected by their shared experience and their shared goal of peace through understanding. Years passed. The peace talks progressed slowly but steadily. There were setbacks, incidents, misunderstandings that nearly derailed everything. But there were also successes. Joint missions, shared research, friendships forming across species lines, and always, in the background, the story of the medic and the scout, the human who saved the Quilnari, the alien who forgave the beast. It became legendary. Sometimes the facts got distorted. Sometimes the story was told incorrectly. But the core remained true. Two people from different worlds surviving together, proving that cooperation was possible. 10 years after the crash, Taesung received a message. Lixara wanted to meet him on Voluna 7. The planet had been terraformed slightly, made more habitable. A small memorial had been built at the crash site. She wanted him to see it. He traveled there, curious. The red desert was gone, replaced by green vegetation. The harsh landscape had been softened, but the rock formations remained, and he could still find the place where it had all happened. The memorial was simple. 2 plaques, one in human script, one in Quilnari. Between them, a sculpture of 2 hands clasped together. One human, one Quilnari. Lixara was waiting there. She had aged well. Gray streaks in her scales now. Laugh lines around her eyes. She looked dignified, content. Hello, Taesung. Hello, Lixara. This is beautiful. It's for us, and for everyone who comes after. A reminder that peace is possible, that we can survive together. They stood together looking at the memorial. Taesung thought about that night 10 years ago. The fear, the pain, the desperate struggle to survive. It felt like another lifetime. Do you remember what you said to me? Lixara asked.
That first night when I asked why you saved me?
I said a person in pain has no nationality. I'm a medic. I save lives. Do you still believe that? More than ever. Good, because that's what we're teaching now, to hundreds of students. That ideology, that simple idea that life is worth saving regardless of species. She smiled. You started something that night, you know. When you set my arm, you broke something too. Not just bone. You broke the idea that humans and Quilnari can't work together. We both broke it. You could have refused to trust me. You could have let fear win. But you didn't. You were brave enough to survive. I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. Bravery is being terrified and doing it anyway. They walked together around the memorial. Other visitors were there. Humans and Quilnari together. Some were medical students studying the historic site. Others were just tourists. All of them knew the story. A young Quilnari approached them nervously. "Excuse me, are you Lixera, the one from the story?" Lixera smiled. "Yes. And you're Taesung, the medic?" "That's right." The young Quilnari's eyes went wide. "I'm studying medicine because of you. Both of you. Your story inspired me. I want to help people the way you did." "That's wonderful," Taesung said. "What's your name?" "Kiora, I'm in my second year." "Are you learning human medical techniques?" "Yes, they're difficult, aggressive. But I'm learning to understand why they're necessary. That causing pain isn't the same as being cruel." Lixera put a hand on Kiora's shoulder. "That's the most important lesson. Remember it when you're treating patients. Sometimes mercy requires strength. Sometimes healing requires pain. I will. Thank you, both of you." The young student left, excited and inspired. Taesung and Lixara watched her go. "There's the future," Lixara said softly. "Young people who grow up knowing that cooperation is possible. Who don't carry the old prejudices. Who see us as people first, species second. Yeah, that's worth everything we went through." As the sun set over Valuna 7, painting the sky in familiar purple and orange, they sat together on a rock near the memorial. Two old friends connected by trauma and trust and the stubborn refusal to let fear win.
Taesung?
Lixara said quietly. "Yeah, thank you. For being a beast when I needed one. For teaching me that strength and kindness aren't opposites. For showing me that my people were wrong about humans. Thank you for being strong enough to survive me. For trusting me when every instinct told you not to. For teaching me that Quilnari aren't weak, just different. We changed each other. Yes, for the better." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, the same stars that had watched them survive together 10 years ago. The same sky, but everything else was different. Peace wasn't perfect yet. There were still tensions, still misunderstandings, still people on both sides who clung to old hatreds. But there was progress. Real progress. And it had started here in this desert with a broken arm and 2 stubborn survivors. "What do you think happens next?" Lixara asked. "For us? For our species? I think we keep teaching. Keep showing people that cooperation works. Keep telling our story until it becomes normal instead of extraordinary. And then maybe, someday, there won't need to be memorials like this, because working together will be so common that no one will think it's special anymore. That's a nice dream. It's a possible dream. We're proof of that." As they prepared to leave, Lixara paused and looked at her arm, the one Taesung had set all those years ago. She flexed it, feeling the strength in the bone. "You know what's funny?" she said. "This arm never bothers me. Not when the weather changes. Not when I'm tired. It's perfect. Stronger than it was before it broke. Bones that break and heal become stronger. That's how it works. Maybe that's true for more than just bones. Maybe relationships work the same way. Break them carefully, heal them properly, and they become stronger than they were before. Maybe that's what happened to us, to our species. We broke, we healed, and now we're stronger. I like that idea." They walked together back to their ships, parked side by side now instead of 100 meters apart. Times had changed. Progress had been made. At her ship's ramp, Lixara turned back one last time. "Goodbye, beast," she said with a smile. Taesung smiled back. "Goodbye, survivor." She touched her arm to her heart. He gave a human nod. Then they parted, going back to their separate lives, connected forever by the 3 days they had survived together in the desert. The memorial stood silent in the darkness, a testament to the idea that sometimes, when everything breaks, the pieces can be put back together stronger than before. Sometimes mercy wears a brutal face. Sometimes strength shows itself through gentleness. Sometimes the monster you fear is just someone strong enough to do what you cannot. And sometimes, in the space between pain and healing, peace becomes possible. The beacon light still blinked on the memorial, a green pulse in the darkness.